Welcome to the Great Detectives of Old Time Radio from Boise, Idaho. This is your host, Adam Graham. If you have a comment, email it to me. Box13@greatdetectives.net. Follow us on Twitter, Radio Detectives, and become one of our friends on Facebook, facebook.com/Radio Detectives. Today's episode is brought to you by the financial support of our listeners. Thanks so much for all the support, guys. You can support the program at support.greatdetectives.net. Now it's time to get into today's episode of yours truly, Johnny Dollar. It's time for the Cronin Matter, Part 3 and Part 4.
From Hollywood, it's time now for
Johnny Dollar. Hello.
Dollar? You're the Mrs. Dollar that's been trying to phone me?
Is this Dr. Bigby?
That's exactly who it is, and I'm very busy right
Look,
now.
Dr. Bigby, I want you to come out here just as soon as possible. It's the old Cronin summer place about 5 miles up the river from where...
Oh, I know where it is, I know. What are you doing up there? The house has been closed for years.
Mrs. Cronin opened it up for a party this weekend, but she was taken ill on the train coming up, and I want...
Is Dolly out there?
Yes, she's the one I want you to look at.
So she's back. After all these years, she's come back.
She had a prescription from her doctor in New York, but she's taken the last of it. It's apparently her heart.
I'm sorry, Mr. Dollar. I'm very busy tonight.
Oh, what?
Much too busy, and then there's a storm coming up, and I have a patient someplace, I think.
Now, wait a second.
If you're a friend of Dolly's, Mrs. Cronin's, do one thing. Take her back to New York. Now. Tonight. Get her out of here. Fast. Before it's too late.
Tonight and every weekday night, Bob Bailey in the transcribed adventures of the man with the action-packed expense account, America's fabulous freelance insurance investigator.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar. From Special Investigator Johnny Dollar at Wells Falls, New York, to the Home Office Surety Mutual and Trust Company, Hartford, Connecticut. Assignment, the Cronin Matter. A $500,000 necklace. Expense account continued. Item 7, $5.40, taxi. I figured I'd find Dr. Bigby in one of the local pubs, but I covered them all in about 30 minutes. No sale. And unfortunately, Bigby was the only doctor in Wells Falls. Worse, the local druggist couldn't fill Mrs. Cronin's prescription. The nearest chance was Tupper Lake, 25 miles away. Back out at the Cronin place, I turned the taxi over to Jason Prell, Mrs. Cronin's business advisor, and he took off for Tupper Lake to look for the medicine. Then I went looking for Mrs. Atherton, a village woman who had been housekeeping on the estate since the place was built. I found her in the kitchen.
Storm's brewing up, coming out of the mountains. It'll hit us before morning. They always come in the night.
I guess you've seen a lot of storms in these hills, Mrs. Atherton.
Lived here all my life, never been out of 'em. It's Miss Atherton, not Mrs.
Oh.
She's the missus up in the bed, even if she is a widow. Little Dolly, Mrs. Cronin, till death do us part.
Did you know Barnaby Cronin, Miss Atherton?
Yes, I knew him. Of course I knew him. I worked here.
Oh, yes, you were here then. What kind of a man was he?
Like any other man.
Not according to Dolly, Mrs. Cronin. She apparently worshipped him. Still does, in fact.
Dolly's always worshiping something. Everybody was always worshiping her. She had us all dancing to her tune, and without even trying.
You knew her back then?
She was born and raised here in the village. I thought everybody knew that.
No, that's what I missed.
Well, we used to work together, waiting tables at the summer hotels around here. That's where Jason Prell saw her. Told her she ought to be on Broadway. She left the town the next week. Didn't come back again till after she and Barnaby was married. And she got him to spend a fortune to build this place for her.
Well, I guess he had the fortune to spend.
Oh, yes. She married well. Count on Dolly for that. Always got whatever she wanted and never even had to ask. Things were just given to her, always.
Yeah, probably so. But she's been pretty generous herself. Like keeping you on here, for instance, when the house has been closed up for years with nobody using it.
Oh, she's the dancing darling, all right, right to the end. Well, now, if you'll excuse me...
There was something else I wanted to ask you, Miss Atherton.
I'm not one to talk ordinarily, but you got me started.
Well, this is not about Mrs. Cronin, at least not directly. She was taken ill on the train. I don't think it's serious, but I wanted a doctor to look her over. The only one in the village seems to be a man by the name of Bigby.
Bigby? He's the coroner here, but he's not a doctor.
No?
Oh, not anymore. Still calls himself one, but he lost his license 10 years ago. He's a drunken sot.
Yeah, I kind of figured. But he sobered up fast when I told him on the phone that the patient was Mrs. Cronin. He refused to come out, told me to get her away from here fast, and then he hung up on me.
Forget him. He couldn't do her any good.
But I'd like to know why he acted that way. Do you happen to know any reason?
Bigby is a drunk. Who knows what his reasons are?
I thought you might.
Better ask him. What difference does it make anyway? He can't help her. Nobody can.
What do you mean?
She's come back, finally. For the first time in all these years. Took sick on the train. That wasn't any surprise to her. She knew it was going to happen.
Well, I guess she halfway knew.
She knew. It's like with an animal. When it's hurt or sick and it comes home to die, and that's what she's done. She's come home to die.
No, I think you're wrong there, Miss Atherton. I don't think she's anywhere near that sick.
Barnaby didn't think so either, when he came back here to die.
Barnaby died here?
Yes, in this very house. A heart attack, it was called. He came up on the afternoon train and... That's strange. It was the same kind of night. A storm like tonight. Strange how things move in patterns.
Were you here with him, Miss Atherton?
Barnaby died alone.
And the doctor? Bigby? Miss Atherton, was the doctor...
I'm sorry, I was thinking. The bridges were washed out. Bigby didn't get here till the next morning. Wouldn't have mattered. He couldn't have done anything. Nobody could have. When it's time for a thing to be done, it's done. Nobody can stop it. Nobody.
It was a strange evening, ominous and oppressive, with a feel of violence in the air. Even the house itself added to the feeling. Furnished lavishly in a style 30 years forgotten, it seemed garish now, old and tired and lonesome. Like Mrs. Cronin herself, who'd planned a grand party for all her old friends, and instead lay ill and alone in the bedroom upstairs. The Queen gave a party, and nobody came. All dressed up, no place to go. Yeah, gloomy evening. Jason Prell came back from Tupper Lake with a medicine. Miss Atherton served a dinner of sorts, served it in silence, and we were left to our own devices. 5 guests and a mansion built for 100. Prell stayed pretty much to himself. Lovely Laura Dean, with that air of knowing innocence, inveigled Shorty Weber into teaching her some of his old dance routines, and they cranked up an old phonograph in the music room. And me, I just stood at an open window and watched the rain come down and tried to think.
That's the perfect touch. It's exactly what the evening needed.
That music? Now, Sylvia.
Really cornball, isn't it? No, Johnny. I meant the thunderstorm. An isolated old mansion, fabulous necklace of diamonds and emeralds, weird housekeeper, a hostess lying ill, and now rain. Shades of a House of Usher.
That'll make a good lead for your magazine story.
I should have stayed in New York and just written it, not lived it.
Oh, I thought you were the big take-a-chance girl, Miss Blake. Danger, mystery, adventure. Don't those things appeal to you?
Maybe. Is there any of that lying around somewhere?
There may be, before the night's over.
Well, all I can see at the moment is sheer boredom.
You have to know where to look.
In the bottom of that scotch glass, for instance?
Oh, just killing time.
Oh. I've been wanting to ask you, Johnny. How'd you get that cut on your head?
It's a long story.
It happened on the train, I know that. You didn't have it when we left.
A sudden stop. I fell over my suitcase.
Sure you did. Backwards.
Huh?
It's on the back of your head. Somebody made a try for it, didn't they? On the train coming up.
Well, I don't know what they were trying for. There wasn't time to ask.
Maybe they even got it.
That's the way you were betting, wasn't it? That it wouldn't be just an attempt. That somebody was going to get it and get away with it.
Did they? Is that what happened? Is it gone? All right, just stand there and grin then. Oh, rain. I'm going back to the city tomorrow.
You are?
Well, don't smother me with your pleading.
No, stick around, Sylvia. Things may get better, including the music.
You know, in a way, I hope somebody did get the Circle of Fire.
Why?
What good is that fabulous necklace doing her now, lying up there? She's had everything she ever wanted. Life's been too easy on her. She doesn't deserve it. She ought to lose it.
Her life or the necklace?
The necklace, of course.
You know, for reasons I can't go into, I think you'll be sorry you said that someday.
Sorry? Why? She's a woman who's had everything.
You're a pretty predator, aren't you? Hurt and afraid.
Am I?
You feel something big may have passed you by, and you put up that tight, bright front for protection. But inside, you're tied in knots.
And what is your recommendation, Doctor? A man, perhaps? That's the usual advice.
Now, you said it. I didn't.
Well, you're a man, Johnny. Why don't you smooch with me? It'd be a way of passing the evening, killing time.
All right.
What are you... Johnny, wait! Johnny, why did you do it?
Because you wanted me to, and because I wanted to.
Adventure, mystery, danger. Who's bored? Who's going back to the city? Those doctors are right.
Mr. Dollar, could I talk to you for a minute?
Why not, Shorty? What's on your mind?
I don't know exactly why you called us all together in
It
here.
was Mrs. Cronin's idea. She set it up with me earlier.
Well, it ain't got nothing to do with what I want to say. You seen me in a bad light there yesterday at Dolly's apartment.
Well,
you found a gun on me. You know about my record. It made it look bad. I know it did. But so help me, Mr. Dollar, everything I told you was the gospel truth.
Yeah.
I'd break my arm before I'd do anything to harm Dolly in the least bit. You see, I've been in love with that woman for 35 years. Like to broke my heart when she married Barnaby. But I always knew I didn't have no chance right from the start. She was up there, big, somebody. Me, I was a nobody. But I'd still die for her any time. That's all, Mr. Dollar. I just wanted you to know.
they were all there, gathered around the big dining table, watching me and waiting. Mrs. Cronin had asked me to arrange it. She said that was the main reason they'd come, and she didn't want to disappoint them. I told them that. And then I took the Circle of Fire from my pocket and laid it on the table. They all reacted in different ways. Laura Dean gave a gasp and her eyes opened wide. And Sylvia...
Look at it. Just look at it.
Sylvia Blake was fascinated, hypnotized.
Yeah, you should have seen it on her back in the old days. It sparkled even twice as much.
So that's what this is all about. It's only jewelry. I've seen it before.
But there was one special reaction I was looking for, and I got it. Jason Prell's face went white.
Who could imagine anything so beautiful?
Mr. Prell, you seem surprised. I wasn't carrying the necklace in its case, the case you stole from me on the train.
What?
I was carrying it loose in my pocket. What did you do, throw the case off the train without even bothering to...
It's running away!
Prell! I went after him, but he'd already disappeared somewhere down the hall. He knew the layout of the house, and I didn't. I searched the different rooms quickly as I passed, but there was no sign of him. He couldn't have reached the floors above, but he might have gone down toward the game room and lower halls. I eased my gun from its holster and started slowly down the stairs. And at that moment, every light in the house went out. Johnny Dollar. Hello, Sheriff. I can't hear you for the storm. We were cut off before. Hello? Is that you, Sheriff? I said... Hello?
You get cut off again, Mr. Dollar?
Not this time, Shorty. Somebody cut the wire. The phone's dead.
Then we got no way of getting White out, no way of getting help.
No, not at the moment.
And he's out there in the dark somewhere. He's got a gun and there's no telling what he may try and do.
Shorty, get away from that window. Well, we know where he is now and what he intends, because he just made a try at it.
What are you going to do about him?
Only thing I can do, Shorty, go get him before he gets me.
Tonight and every weekday night, Bob Bailey in the transcribed adventures of the man with the action-packed expense account, America's fabulous freelance insurance investigator.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar. From Special Investigator Johnny Dollar at the Cronin Estate, Wells Falls, New York, to the Home Office, Surety Mutual and Trust Company, Hartford, Connecticut. Assignment, the Cronin matter. Protection of a $500,000 necklace. Expense account continued. Item 10, $135. One tweed sport jacket to be purchased on my return. Both lapels and one shoulder ripped by a bullet. Also one pair of slacks to match. Destroyed a few minutes later in the mud, slush, and underbrush in the grounds of the Cronin place while pursuing a suspect who'd already tried twice to kill me and who made a third go at it when I stepped out of the side door of the house. Tony, away from the door, quick.
Whew, boy, that was close.
Yeah, he could see the door opening, but he can't see us, not in this mess. He's desperate. He's shooting blind. Look, Shorty, why don't you go on back in the house? There's no reason for you taking chances like this.
You're taking them?
With me, it's a job of work. I get paid for it.
I told you earlier how I felt about Dolly, I mean. I don't know what Jason Prell's game is, Mr. Dollar, but if it's against her, then I'm against him. I'm staying.
All right, it's up to you.
Thanks for giving me the gun back.
Emergency, that's all. You've got a prison record, Shorty. You know what it means if you're caught with a gun.
Yeah, I know.
Hey, good. I figured Prell would give himself away if he kept that up. I got him spotted now.
Where?
At the base of that tall pine, a little to the left. Watch for it, the next flash of lightning.
There, yeah, now I see it. I know the one you mean.
Then stay here and keep him pinned down. It's a good spot. You've got cover from the wall of the terrace there.
What are you going to do?
Circle around and come up beside him. Just throw a shot at the base of that pine tree now and then. Keep him tied down. Keep him busy. You got it?
Right. And good luck.
I left the shelter of the house and started edging through the shrubbery. The undergrowth was a regular jungle. It would have been impossible to slip up on Prell without his hearing if it hadn't been for the storm. Shorty Weber fired now and then at the pine tree. And twice Prell fired in answer. Jason Prell, so-called friend of old Mrs. Cronin, knew I had him tagged. At first I'd been guessing mainly, but he didn't know it. And he'd lost his head and made the guess prove out. And now he was apparently ready to risk murder or death rather than face a prison term. I was within 30 feet of him. He hadn't heard a sound. He was still firing at Shorty over on the terrace. His back was turned partly toward me. He didn't know I was near, so I leveled my gun. Get your hands up, Prell. Drop that gun. You're covered. He whirled, peering into the darkness of the bushes, trying to see me. He knew I was close, but he couldn't tell where. He raised his gun, started to turn, and I'm not quite certain what happened next. The light was bad, and I could hardly see him. Whether he stumbled accidentally or what is something I'll never know. All I know is that when I walked over to him, he was dead.
He was no good, Mr. Dollar. I always thought so, but Dolly swore by me. He had her fool.
What about Barnaby, her husband?
He couldn't stand Prell at first. Later, they got as thick as thieves.
Yeah. Well, it's a mess, Shorty, a real mess. Old things that should have stayed dead and buried on the bottom, they're all coming to the surface now.
Tell me something, Mr. Dollar.
Yeah?
What about Dolly? Is this thing going to kick back on her? Will she get hurt by it?
Yeah, Shorty, I'm afraid she will. Pretty badly. It was deep into the night, edging toward dawn, when I got back to the house. I changed out of my wet clothes, went to the game room, and got Dolly's necklace from under a chair cushion. I'd stuck it there when Prell had pulled the main switch and put the lights out. Then I went upstairs to look in on Dolly Cronin, quietly, just to check. But it didn't work out that way.
Johnny, is that you?
Yeah. I didn't mean to wake you.
You didn't. I've been awake most of the night. Come on in, Johnny.
All right. How are you feeling?
Oh, just fine. There's nothing wrong with me. I feel fine.
Good.
Isn't Laura Dean a nice girl?
Huh?
Yes, she is. And I'm glad she came. Company for you, Johnny.
Oh, yeah. Quite a storm we had, wasn't it?
Oh, it was beautiful. All that lightning, wind, the thunder. Oh, I haven't seen such a beautiful storm since I was little. Johnny, thought I heard shots a while ago.
Shots?
Outdoors, off toward the woods somewhere.
Or it might have been lightning, thunder.
Sounded like a gun, like somebody shooting.
Well, sound plays funny tricks up here in the mountains.
I guess so, but... Well, I've been thinking back over the past so much that makes the present a little unreal. I'm afraid the past is about all I have left now.
Now, don't be so quick to sell this future of yours short. You've got a lot of years yet, good years.
Well, I had a lot of good years. Good friends, good times, a good life. And best of all was Barnaby.
You loved him very much, didn't you, Mrs. Cronin?
I worshipped him. He was perfect. He never did a wrong thing in his life. Now that he's gone, is the one fine memory I always cling to. Oh, if I didn't have that, well, I just couldn't go on.
Well, then let's hope you never lose that memory.
Of course, there were other good friends, too, over the years, like Jason Prell. He is so quiet and withdrawn, it takes a long time to get to know him. But he's been such a good friend to me. So patient with all this silly ignorance of mine about business problems.
Yes, I'm sure he has.
I just don't know what I'd do without him.
Yeah. Now, don't you think you'd better get some sleep?
In a little while. You know, Johnny, it's funny how things work out.
In what way?
I was born and grew up right here in this village.
Yes, your housekeeper, Miss Atherton, told me the two of you were girls together.
We were inseparable. Like I said, I grew up here and then I went away. And Barnaby and I came back and built this house, and we went away again. There were always so many places to go, new things to do.
It's a big world, isn't it?
And finally Barnaby came back for the last time and died here. All alone, poor boy. And now I've come back, the place where I was born. Everything finally comes home, doesn't it, Johnny?
Yes, nearly always.
I'm very tired. I think I will sleep now.
Be good for you.
The necklace, Johnny, do you have it with you?
I sure do. Here you are.
So beautiful. And so many memories. All so long ago. Put it on me. Will you, Johnny?
Of course. Raise up now. Just a little. There.
How do I look?
Sweet enough to kiss.
Well? Nice.
You go to sleep now.
Yes, sir. I'll only look at the necklace for 1 minute only. Then I'll take my pills and go to sleep. And then I'll dream up a dream. A great big dream.
Good night. Dancing, darling.
It's been a long time since anyone called me that. A long, long time. Good night, Johnny. And thank you.
I left her and went downstairs and rustled myself a pot of coffee. I sat down by an east window and drank it cup after cup and watched the morning sun come up. Dream a big dream. Well, before many more hours, she was going to need a big dream. There was no way of keeping it from her, all of it. The fact that Jason Prell was dead, shot, that he'd attempted murder and tried to steal a necklace. And worst of all, that her beloved Barnaby had probably been as big a crook as Prell.
Is it all right if the girl who can't sleep sits this one out with you?
Sure. Pull up a chair, Laura. Like some coffee?
Just black, thank you. I guess it wouldn't do much good to ask you what's been going on around here all night.
Something has?
Like I said, I guess it wouldn't do much good.
Here's your coffee.
Oh, thanks. That's how I found you. Just followed the smell of this coffee. Good. I guess if I said I heard somebody shooting up the place during the storm, you'd just say, really?
Never use the word.
And I guess if I showed you that broken window over there, you'd say maybe a pigeon flew in.
Might, if I happen to think of it. I'm sorry all this kept you awake.
Oh, don't apologize. I probably wouldn't have slept anyway.
Why not? Guilty conscience?
Don't be silly. I didn't even do it.
Do what?
Whatever it is I'm supposed to feel guilty about.
Lying is what I had in mind at the moment.
Oh, I do that all the time, but I never feel guilty about it. I just call it making up things.
Like claiming you were the niece of Fritzie Morel, Mrs. Cronin's oldest friend.
Gosh, went down my windpipe.
Like claiming you're Fritzie Morel's niece.
Mostly I drink tea, but you already had the coffee
Like
made.
claiming you're Fritzie...
All right. How'd you find out?
Nothing very spectacular. She just didn't have a niece.
I wasn't sure, but I thought she must. Everybody her age has at least one niece.
What was the idea? Well?
Well, I lived in the same rooming house she did. She liked me, talked to me a lot before she died last year. So when the invitation came last week, I got the idea of going as her niece. I didn't mean any harm by it. I just wanted to go to the party.
All right, relax. That's about the way I figured it. Well, it turned out to be quite a party, didn't it?
I hope I never see another one like this as... Johnny, what's wrong with her?
It was Miss Atherton. I got up slowly from my chair as she walked toward us and then stopped a few feet from the table. Her eyes were fixed on something far away, and the look on her face was strange and grim. I think I knew even before she spoke.
Mrs. Cronin is dead.
There'll be another intriguing episode in our story of the Cronin matter tomorrow.
Tomorrow, the questions and the answers for the living and the dead. The final payoff. And fate itself plays the last trump. Join us, won't you? Yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, starring Bob Bailey, is transcribed in Hollywood. Written by Les Crutchfield, it is produced and directed by Jack Johnstone. Be sure to join us tomorrow night, same time and station, for the next exciting episode of Yours truly, Johnny Dollar. Roy Rowan speaking.
Welcome back. Well, there are a couple things in this episode just really emblematic of what I love so much about this run of Johnny Dollar. First of all, you have the scenes with Mrs. Cronin and Johnny Dollar. Just absolutely priceless. It's that ability to connect, that tenderness that Bob Bailey brings to the role. And then you just have that perfect teaser for Friday's show. If you were sitting there listening to this in 1955, how could you not tune in on Friday? It just absolutely makes you want to find out what's going to happen next. So good writing, great acting, and that right there is, in a nutshell, what makes this program so great, as well as the stars that are available to it. All right, well, listener comments and feedback, and we begin with one from Mark, who's written to us before, a long time friend of the show, says, Dude, we get that you don't like the giant animal commercials on Johnny Dollar. You don't need to tell us about it every time one shows up. Well, Mark, I definitely appreciate the feedback, and I'll take it into consideration in future shows when dealing with somewhat trying commercials. I will say in my defense that that not only were these commercials troublesome, but I had to listen to them 10 times in a week. Now, say what you want about the Clippercraft ads, which could be, at times, cheesy, tone-deaf, just plain over the top. You only had to listen to those once a week. You get basically the same commercial 5 days a week, 2 times a show. So it's hard not to comment on. But thanks for the feedback. I appreciate it. All right, well, we have a comment on Facebook from David, who talked on the last episode of The Big Guy. David said wasn't too sure about this series at first, but this episode was great. Wish there were at least a few more to hear. Well, I definitely agree. There are so many shows we've played on this show. I love to play the short series just to give you a sample of what's out there, but a lot of them leave you wanting more. A Life in Your Hands, Leonidas Witherall, the Poirot series with Harold Huber. Particularly that they had a daily serial that they aired over CBS. Only 2 episodes in existence, not a complete series, so I couldn't bring you that, but it definitely leaves you wanting more. Well, this one's not one that Big Guy's not one I'm particularly optimistic about. I'll keep an eye out, see if I stumble across anything. All right, well, that'll do it for today. Join us tomorrow. We'll be bringing you Sherlock Holmes. And then on Friday, we're going to find out the conclusion to the Cronin matter. In the meantime, send your comments to box13, greatdetectives.net. Follow us on Twitter, Radio Detectives, and become one of our friends on Facebook, facebook.com/Radio Detectives. From Boise, Idaho, this is your host, Adam Graham, signing off.